You're about to listen to a BBC podcast, and I'd like to tell you a bit about the podcasts I work on. I'm Dan Clark, and I commission factual podcasts at the BBC. It's a massive area, but I'd sum it up as stories to help us make sense of the forces shaping the world. What podcasting does is give us the space and the time to take brilliant BBC journalism and tell amazing, compelling stories that really get behind the headlines. And what I get really excited about is when we find a way of drawing you into a subject you might not even have thought you were interested in. Whether it's investigations, science, tech, politics, culture, true crime, the environment, you can always discover more with a podcast on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, your daily dose of news, insight and analysis. It's Thursday the 21st of December. I'm Ian McCall, and coming up today...
An early ball in, it's not a bad ball at all, comes to Dessers, oh he scored!
Brutal strength from Duke, and he picks out the off skate. Oh, it's lethal stuff from Aberdeen and Bojan the off skate.
Crucial wins for Rangers and Aberdeen. We'll take a look back at last night's Premiership action. Also...
Oh, what a goal! What a goal! Absolutely magnificent from Dylan Easton for Raith Rovers.
We'll discuss what promises to be another huge weekend in the Championship, and we'll be hearing from the Forfar star who's been called up to play at the Africa Cup of Nations.
Even to be involved in them sort of situations, like as a kid you dream of that.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
All that and more to come on the Scottish Football Podcast today. I'm delighted, firstly, though, to introduce, as usual on a Thursday, the Clyde manager, Ian McCall. Ian, how you doing this week?
I'm good, Liam, thanks. Yep.
Have you been settling into life at the Bullywee?
Yeah, there's one or two changes need to be made, so I'm on that just now, but January is a notoriously hard month, a hard window to do the changes that we need to do, so I've told one or two that they're going, and I've signed one so far, and I think I need a number of others so that we can... I'm very, very pleased that this young chat's been called up, though, because it weakens Forfar, who are down there close to us, so that's good news for me.
Yes, we'll be revealing all with regards to that just very shortly, and we've got plenty to get through on today's podcast. That story is quite remarkable, actually, and we'll get to that. He could be facing the World Cup semi-finalists at the Africa Cup of Nations, taking a break from business at the Loons. But firstly, as usual, let's quickly run through today's Scottish football headlines. Well, Rangers moved to within 2 points of Celtic at the top of the Premiership with a 2-0 home win over St Johnstone last night. The Ibrox side could go top if they win their game in hand. Meantime, St Johnstone say they will alert Police Scotland after midfielder Dialing Jaisimi, who was sent off in the match, was racially abused on social media afterwards. In the evening's other game, Aberdeen came from behind to beat Livingston 2-1 at Pittodrie, thanks to a double from Bojan Miovski. Scotland's Erin Cuthbert also bagged a brace as she helped Chelsea to a 3-1 win over Häcken in the Women's Champions League. And former Rangers manager Michael Beale, who's now in charge at Sunderland, has defended his transfer record, saying the goalposts changed after Ross Wilson left Ibrox. We'll start, though, with last night's action. Potentially a little sticky game for Rangers yesterday, given their schedule, their progress in the Europa League, and then everything they put into that cup final on Sunday. But they came through pretty comfortably against St Johnstone, who, as I mentioned in the headlines there, were reduced to 10 men pretty early on in the match, Ian. And it's probably been, since they maybe reached the final of the Europa League and went on to win the Scottish Cup, it's been an extremely positive week for Rangers, one of their best in recent years, you would have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly, I wouldn't call it a shambles before, but it looked like an awful lot of players were playing with little or no confidence. And, you know, last night, to win in Betis and Seville when you consider the record against Spanish teams on Spanish soil, was just an incredible result. And then they had to battle it out against Aberdeen. I thought it was a poor game. I think everybody would agree with that, but they certainly, I think, deserved to win. I think they did enough to win. It's been a terrific week for them, and Clement has made a real difference, and he seems to say all the right things that's got to be said. And I think last night was a sticky one because they're playing against a team whose fortunes have turned round under Craig, and certainly Craig, I think he's a terrific manager, but he does know how to set a team up to make them really difficult to play against. So that was a hurdle. I think it was made easier. The lad that got sent off after 33 minutes. But it was one of those nights, I think, at Ibrox. I wasn't there, obviously, but all that mattered was the result. And I think you get nights like that at Rangers and at Celtic when really all that matters, because of what's happening on the other side of the city, is winning 3 points. And they did that. A couple of injury worries, unfortunately, which seems to be a recurring theme for Rangers, but it was a big 3 points and puts them in a really strong position in the league.
Yeah, Kemar Roof went off injured. He started the game and has just been besieged by injury problems over the last couple of seasons. John Lundstrom was replaced as well in the wake of the challenge that led to the Jaisimi red card. I think Clement said afterwards he'd been kicked off the pitch. It is a major problem for Rangers, isn't it, when you consider the names and numbers that they've got out at the moment, albeit it doesn't seem to be affecting their form under Philippe Clement. And Ian, it's all about consistency, isn't it? And that is exactly what Rangers have got right now.
Yeah, I think when you've got the squad the size of Rangers, that, you know, it's different for other clubs when they get that level of injuries. You should still be able to deal with it. But Lundstrom has become a key player. I think his form's been terrific in the last 6 weeks or so. And with Danilo out and Kemar Roof out, obviously in that striking area, it really leaves him with one main striker in Dessers. So his stats are actually, I know he's taken a lot of abuse, but his stats are, in terms of putting the ball in the net, aren't terrible. But he'll be wondering, I think the manager will be wondering what else he can do. And I've been through that, and you try and examine everything you do. And, you know, sometimes it's just luck, and sometimes it just happens, and you need to get through it. But there'll be a bit of I think as well, Liam, there'll be a wee bit of a siege mentality. We've got all these injuries. Let's just get to this break. You know, let's win these games, get to the break, and we can, you know, recover all our players and get ready for the second half of the season.
Yeah, Dessa's just one off double figures now, which will be great for him personally. Rangers then to within 2 points of Celtic. They've still got that game in hand as well, albeit it'll be Celtic will be playing first this weekend when they take on Livingston. Rangers are at Motherwell. Big win as well for Aberdeen. Back-to-back victories actually in the Premiership. It's for the first time since September. I watched that match, Ian. It probably wasn't the most convincing performance from Aberdeen, I would have to say, especially in the first half. Seems to be a recurring theme for them. But for Barry Robson, off the back of that final, getting the 3 points was all that mattered, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think some people think that Barry Robson and other managers at that level sometimes make excuses with the schedule, but I think it is difficult. I think it must be difficult to come back off a cup final when, you know, it was difficult for Rangers, but Aberdeen spent most of the game trying to close off areas, trying to close off space, which requires, you know, an awful lot of metres run. I'd be surprised if a lot of their players weren't doing 11, 12, 13k in the game. But, you know, the one thing that I took out of both fixtures, Liam, was, I mean, I started playing in about 81, 82, so I've been in Scottish football for quite a number of years. I can't remember the last time when the two best strikers in Scottish football were playing for teams other than the Old Firm. Kyogo, arguably, obviously, but his form hasn't been great this year. But in Miovski and Shankland, I think they're the two best strikers in Scottish football, and they play for Aberdeen and Hearts, which is I've never known that in my time.
Well, there's been a lot of talk recently about how a number of Scottish Premiership teams could lose star players in January and February due to the Africa Cup of Nations and the Asian Cup. Aberdeen, Celtic, Hearts, Hibs, Rangers and St Mirren could all be affected by player absences. And now you can add Forfar Athletic to that list because Roberto Nditi, who plays in defence for the team currently 8th in League 2, has been called up to Tanzania's squad for the Africa Cup of Nations. And I'm delighted to say he joins myself and Ian on the Scottish Football Podcast today. Bobby, welcome to the podcast and congratulations. How does it feel to be just days away now from joining up with your international teammates for such a big tournament?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys having me on, and feels incredible. It's a special moment for not just me, my family, and hopefully my team are proud as well. So I can't wait to get going. It's an opportunity that I never thought would come, but it has, and I can't wait to go and experience it.
It must have been something that was completely off your radar, playing for Forfar, where they are just now in the ladder. It must have been a real surprise. And what you've got now is a situation where you're away to Peterhead on Saturday. Your next game could then be against the World Cup semi-finalists, Morocco, which is just, that's beyond belief, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a crazy situation when you put it into perspective. But yeah, it was one of them things where go from Peterhead to potentially Morocco is playing against world-class opposition. That would be an incredible opportunity for myself, even to be involved in them sort of situations. Like, as a kid, you dream of that and representing your nation.
Yeah, absolutely surreal, but brilliant at the same time. I watched one of the Tanzania players playing against Aberdeen recently. He scored in the away leg for PAOK, Ali Samata. So there's obviously there are a few players in there who are playing at very high levels. This will be, if nothing else, is going to be a fabulous experience for you personally, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a fabulous experience. I also get to learn of these other players that play for Tanzania. Everyone's high quality out there, and hopefully they can provide me something by me watching them, learning, taking bits out of each individual. Samata, obviously, he's played at Villa, top level. He's been in the Prem, so I can watch him as a striker, and as a defender, I can learn how he moves, what sort of movement he makes, and hopefully that will increase my game for when I'm back at Forfar.
How's your manager going to deal with your absence, Mr. McKinnon?
Well, I'm sure he's excited for me. I've had a few conversations with him and the assistant, the club, the chairman, and I think they all maybe weren't expecting it, even more than me. But now that I'm in the situation, they're full of encouragement, full of positivity. Hopefully it galvanizes the team as well. It shows them that, it doesn't matter what level you play at. As long as you put your head down, work hard and try and perform week in, week out, like, opportunities can come for anyone.
Bobby, well, listen, we wish you well. We really do. It's a great story, and we'll be keeping tabs on what's going on out at the Africa Cup of Nations. But listen, good luck to you, and we'll be watching.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys.
You're listening to the Scottish Football Podcast.
Right, finally, on today's edition, let's take our regular look at the Championship. It was a bumper weekend last time out, to say the least. Raith Rovers extending their lead at the top with that superb 1-0 win away to Dundee United. The top two are in action again tomorrow evening. Dundee United going to Queen's Park. That game's live on Sports Scene on the BBC Scotland channel from 7:30. Ian, after the disappointment of last weekend, that's a game that Dundee United will be requiring the 3 points in. So it's getting to that stage now, even at this point at the turn of the year, where Raith Rovers don't look like tailing off anytime soon. And that was a massive win for Ian Murray's men at the weekend.
It was. I think requiring is the right word. You look at Raith Rovers' two fixtures at home to Ayr United, at home to Arbroath. You must fancy them to win those at Starts Park, so it becomes really, really important that certainly Dundee United get 3 points against Queen's Park. Then they've got a difficult game against Thistle on the following Friday, I think. So they don't want the gap to get any bigger until they can play their game in hand. The league's a bit funny this year. It looks like the top two Thistle are desperately trying to hang on to the top two, and then below that, you could have any team right down to second bottom going for that fourth place. So you'd worry about Queen's Park. I think that having winning their first 3 games. I think they've only taken 4 points from their next 36. So something needs to happen there quite soon. Particularly, I think making an appointment would be the first step. But yeah, as a Dundee United, well, as a former manager there, they'll be under pressure. The players are under pressure to produce. Same as Rangers the other night. Maybe not. It doesn't need to be a performance, but you need to get the 3 points. I think I'm going to the game. I'm looking forward to it. So that's a big one in the Championship. They certainly don't want the gap to develop.
No, they've got a game in hand as well just now, and if they win that, the gap's only 2 points. So it's still early days. But that can, obviously, the way Raith are going just now, you just don't see them dropping too many points. A lot will depend on getting through the winter without the injuries and all that piling up. So big game clearly for Dundee United and for Jim Goodwin, and obviously really sad news coming out of the club. They are sad personal news for Lee Sharp, the Dundee United assistant. I think everyone's thoughts are with him and his family and friends just now, friends of the family. Raith taking on Ayr United, as Ian was saying there, they're both playing on the Friday evening. Ayr have been a funny team this season, but you would have to say that, when you look at the form of the two teams, Rovers are motoring just now. It's at home. So you would expect them to pick up the victory in that one.
Yeah, I think these are the ones that are potential banana skins when all the expectation level is on them winning. I think, if they can keep all their players fit, it's almost like in rugby, replacing like all the front row, which is basically the props and the hooker. So that's what they do with their front three. I mean, you've probably commented in some of the games, Liam, they've got 3 players on the bench that can come on in the forward areas and replace other 3, and the quality doesn't really drop off. Ayr are a bit funny, and I think it's just down to the record of Somerset, which is just a great ground to get home form going. They got a big win against Airdrie. Their away form is actually reasonably decent, though. So, I mean, I don't think that game is a foregone conclusion. And you wonder, I said before, how long Raith can keep up scoring goals from the 90th minute onwards. I've not really known a season like it. I don't know how many points they've garnered from their late goals, but it seems to be every second week they're doing it. And I don't know if that continues. Maybe it will. But yeah, I mean, I think when you're trying to win a title, the games that you're expected to win are sometimes tricky.
The guys will keep you up to date with what's going on at Starks Park. If you watch Sports Scene, Queen's Park against Dundee United, it's the live game tomorrow evening, so looking forward to that. Saturday, Airdrie at home to Morton, Dunfermline travel to Arbroath, and Partick Thistle host Cali Thistle. That one's going to be interesting, isn't it? They're two teams seemingly moving in different directions. Cali Thistle have had a little bit of a tail off recently, and as you say, Partick Thistle, a club you know exceptionally well, are desperately trying to keep tabs with the top 2.
I think the big thing for Partick Thistle is trying to keep a hold of 1 or 2 of their players. I think in January, I think Aidan Fitzpatrick for me is the best player in the division, and there must be teams looking at him. I know he's just signed a longer contract, which puts Thistle in the driving seat. I think Inverness, Duncan started really well. There was quite a long unbeaten run, maybe 7, 8, 9 games, whatever. But they've hit a little sticky spot, and Thistle at home with the front 3 that they have of Lawless, Graham and Fitzpatrick are pretty potent. I think they need defensive midfield. They need to sort that a little bit. When the 2 games they've had against Raith and Dundee United, they lost 9 goals. But I think they must be close to being the highest scoring team in the league. I think maybe only Dundee United scored more. So they can. I spoke to Jules yesterday. Actually, I had my begging bowl out trying to get a player from him. And I said to him that there was quite some nice symmetry involved, because when I signed Chris Doolan, I sent him on loan to Clyde for 20 games before he came back. He didn't score 1 goal for Clyde, and he came back to us. And the first touch of his ball, he hit one in for 25 yards into the top corner at Firhill. So, and then he's continued scoring for about a decade. So, yeah, I mean, that'll be a tricky game for Partick Thistle, but, you've got to fancy them at Firhill.
Yes, it's a no-brainer. Send players to Clyde, and that's where they develop. That's clearly the way to go.
Absolutely, and that's for the here and now as well.
Ian, thanks as usual for your insight on the Scottish Football Podcast this morning, and my thanks as well to Roberto Nditi who joined us a little earlier. All the best to him at his big tournament with his country. Remember, Queen's Park against Dundee United will be live on Sports Scene from 7:30 on the BBC Scotland channel tomorrow night. The Scottish Football Podcast is with you every day, and tomorrow you'll be with Amy Canavan and Thomas Duncan, along with Ayr United's former Scotland, Motherwell, Rangers, St Johnstone and Brighton forward Jamie Murphy. As ever, if you've got any questions for the guys, email scottishfootball@bbc.co.uk. Scottish Football, that's one word, at bbc.co.uk. As I say, every day we're with you. If you haven't done so already, subscribe and follow the Scottish Football Podcast so you don't miss an episode. Bye-bye.
Just a quick word to say the Scotland Rugby Podcast is now available every Tuesday. Join me, Andy Burke and Tom English for everything you need to know about the world of Scottish rugby. Just head to BBC Sounds and subscribe to the Scotland Rugby Podcast.
Once you've wrapped up this podcast, how about trying a very British cult?
What happens if the person you trust with your future isn't what you think they are?
I did feel the whole time he was watching me.
Yeti?
I saw a footprint, and that really gave me goosebumps.
Or people who knew me?
Emmy, I remember every secret, every lie. I'm the only one who knows the truth.
Discover more of our biggest podcasts from 2023. Listen on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Ian McCall, and this is a special episode of the Scottish Football Podcast. Last Christmas Eve, Craig Gordon's career seemed to be in jeopardy when he sustained a double leg break against Dundee United in a game at Tannadice. Now, nearly exactly 12 months on, the 40-year-old is back in the Heart squad and has his sights set on Euro 2024 with Scotland. As we approach the anniversary of that day, he sat down with Brian McLauchlin to discuss his recovery, rehab, and hopes for the future.
You're listening to the Scottish Football Podcast.
Craig, good to see you. 2023, it's been quite a year for you, hasn't it? Just give us an indication as to what the last 12 months have been like for you.
Yeah, it's been a rehab year. I've had a few of them before, so not a stranger to them entirely. But yeah, it's never nice when you have to go through an extended period. Obviously, I knew coming into the year, injury on Christmas Eve, that this year was going to be about trying to get back and doing everything possible that I could to get back to playing football. It's been a big challenge, but one that I've took head on and I'm at the end of now.
What are your memories of Christmas Eve last year? Can you remember much about the game?
Yeah, a little bit. I remember making the save just before it from Stephen Fletcher. I tipped his header over the bar, and I remember the incident absolutely fine. I knew straight away that I'd broken my leg. When the physio came on, I was quite calmly told him that I'd broken my leg. I didn't realise the severity of it at the time, and that it was just hanging on by skin and probably not a lot else. But I knew I'd done a pretty serious injury to myself, and it was going to be a long way back.
I know that you were on the ground for a fair bit of time. When you were walking off, you said something. Was it, you just wanted Hearts to win the game that day? I think you told one of the players, just go and win the game.
Yeah, when I was getting treatment and before I even got put on the stretcher, that I said, well, come on, let's go and win the game, get back into this. Eventually we managed to get a draw out of it, which was good to come back and get that after going behind. But yeah, it was obviously a much longer day for me after that. I went to the hospital and had a procedure to straighten the leg and put it in a cast. It was only when I came round from that I realised what the score was in the game, and asked to see the pictures of the one main picture that was doing the rounds at that time with my leg in a very strange position. But I got to see that after the sort of first procedure, and yeah, knew that I was in for the long haul then.
What was going through your mind when you looked at that picture, when you realised that it was so serious?
just straight away that this is a challenge. This is going to be difficult, but also, all right, that's what I'm facing. That's what it is, and there's an acceptance. And once you have the knowledge of that, it's right. Okay, now what do I need to do to make this better, and then what are the stages of that? And finding out as much information as I could to put myself on the right path as early as possible.
It's a mental strain as well, though, as a physical strain, but you're very strong-minded. How much did you have to rely on that strong mentality to keep yourself and your family, at this time of the year, very strong?
Yeah, so the operation was on Christmas Day, so the second procedure to actually put the metal rod into my shin bone was on Christmas Day. So yeah, I missed the entire Christmas with my family. They were still down in Edinburgh. I was still in Dundee at that point. So yeah, I missed everything. The children actually left their presents until I got home. So even the presents that they were due to open on Christmas Day, they left for a few days until I got home and could watch them open those presents, which was nice from them as well. I
was going to say that must have been a huge comfort to you that, when you did get back home, the family were there to help you out.
Yeah, and I got myself a spot on the sofa and kind of camped out there for the first few weeks. Couldn't really move a great deal. It was still very painful. So yeah, I slept on the sofa for the first few weeks. Couldn't really manage to get up and down the stairs. So yeah, they were great to be around and just have that normality just going around me. Was easier to settle back in.
When you had the operation on Christmas Day, did the surgeon explain to you exactly what he was going to do? Because while everybody else was getting Christmas presents, you were getting a 15-inch rod inserted into your leg.
Yeah, well, the first thing he said was that they were going to have to search the hospital for a rod long enough, because my shin bone is quite long, and that actually pushed the operation back a couple of hours until they could find the right metalwork to fit my bone. But they did, and yeah, everything, they explained exactly what they were going to do and how they were going to do it. Slightly new procedures to what has been done with this injury in the past, and the fact that they went in just above the knee to drill down through the shin bone is something that maybe some of the footballers in the past have not had done. So that was that all got explained to me, and it went well. It then got fixed just above my ankle and just below my knee with screws at either end, and yeah, that all was explained. It went well. The dangers were that I could get compartment syndrome in my calf, and luckily enough that never materialised, and I was okay to go home a couple of days later.
The medical staff, you must be so pleased that they were able to bring these procedures out, because let's be honest, Craig, in years gone by, this would have been a career-ending injury for many a player. Yeah, quite possibly. And also with it being Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the specialists maybe be spending that with their families. In fact, it wasn't even a leg specialist that was on call at that particular time. And although he's done loads of these operations in the past, and assured me it was no problem at completing the operation. It was it was a relief to get it done and know that everything was in the right place, and it was up to me to rehab it as best I could. Now, your injury was highlighted, and because of the severity of it, Craig Halkett hasn't played since then either, because of I think it was Achilles, or was it his knee? Yeah, I think it was his knee at the time. But the pair of you have been in that rehab room going through that. What is that in some way been some comfort to you that you've had somebody there who was on the pitch with you? Although you actually lasted 76, he was off after just 6 minutes that day. That you had somebody who you knew well, who could give yourselves both a lift to try and come through it. Yeah, the treatment room unfortunately was a little bit busy through our time in there. Halks has done incredibly well. He's looking very strong again. ACL injuries are also very difficult injuries to come back from, and can cause problems, but he's looking really strong and looking near a return, which is great for everybody here. We've definitely missed him. He's a real big part of the dressing room and the team, so yeah, be delighted to see him get back in
the coming weeks, which will be fantastic and a big lift for everyone. But yeah, had Boyce in there, Benny in there, also the ACL injury is also very long term. So there has been a great work ethic from these guys to get back, and yeah, it rubs off, and everybody has tried to better each other's times on the bike and things like that. So there's been that competition to try and boost everybody getting back also.
Yeah, 4 or 5 players who would have been on the pitch at a time when Hearts needed them, and sadly Robbie lost his job, I think it was the start of April. That must have been a great frustration to you, not being able to, not just yourself but the rest of you weren't able to be on the pitch and help them.
Yeah, I went through a sort of bad time. Up until then we'd been very successful coming back from the Championship, getting 3rd place, and it seemed to go wrong very quickly over a couple of months, where we just couldn't get a win, and unfortunately Robbie was the one to get sacked for that, and that was a hard time. That was difficult. I thought we had a squad that could go on and get 3rd place again, and for whatever reason it didn't happen. And Nazy took over towards the end of the season, and we managed to solidify 4th, which was not really what we were looking for, but it did get us the chance to play in Europe again.
Back to your own rehab, has there been many bumps in the road over the last year? You've had at least one more operation, was it 2?
Yeah, there's been a couple of operations to take metal work out, to take a couple of screws out just below the knee that were causing problems with other tendons and things like that. So that was always a possibility. That was sort of said right at the start that could happen, and it was easy enough to take them out. And yeah, each time that I've then stepped forward, and it's been fine in the rehab after that. So yeah. Small bumps in the road that there's always going to be in such a long-term process like that with any long-term injury. There's going to be little things along the way that you're going to have to overcome. I knew that from my previous injuries anyway, that it was not going to be a sort of smooth straight line to recovery, and that there's going to be days where it's going to be difficult and might not fancy doing the hard work, but overall over a longer period of time we'll get there.
Those times that you've had out of the game previously from injury, in a perverse way, they helped you?
Yes, sometimes. I think it's never nice to be out injured, but you can take a step back and have a look at things, and perhaps a look at your own game and what you can improve. But yeah, it's never nice, but you may as well do as much as you can while you're out. Be it working on other parts of your game, other parts of your body that you maybe don't get the time or the chance to do during a season. So yeah, you have to maximise that time out and come back as strong as possible.
We've forgotten all about your 40th birthday as well. Hogmanay last year. What was that like?
Pretty painful. Still very early days after the operation. Someone managed to organise a family meal in the house, which I managed to hobble to the table and then sit and have everyone there, which was nice. I should had much grander plans, but unfortunately most of them had to get shelved until much later in the year. I think we finished off my 40th celebrations in June or July, which was not on the cards, but yeah, we all made do and got through, and it was still a very nice time to spend with the family.
40 is normally an age though for a footballer when you start to think, it's maybe time to start thinking about a second career in the game, whether it be coaching or the media. At no point was that in your thoughts, given the injury that you had? No, I just wanted to recover. I want to show everybody what is possible. I was never going to accept that, no matter how long it took to try and come back and play again and show everybody that you don't have to give up with an injury like this. It wasn't the way I wanted to finish playing football. I want to finish it out there, and I'm still giving everything to make sure that's how it finishes. There were many people doubting though that you would come back, Craig. Did you feel that you had a point to prove to them? Because I know you were putting a lot of social media clips out there in the gym, etc. Doing weights, running, jumping, that sort of thing. Was that key, do you think, to show people that, look, don't think I'm done, because I'm not.
Yeah, I think so. That was also for myself, really, to kind of chart my progress. It can become difficult. You maybe don't see the gains that you're making when you're doing it day in, day out. But over a longer period, if I can go back and sort of check in with those, then I know I'm still progressing. But yeah, to show everybody what is possible. If you put your mind to it and if you're willing to do the work, it's not going to be easy, but if you keep going and you're willing to make the sacrifices to make it work, then it is possible.
One of the other things you've missed out on, of course, is Euro qualification for Scotland. The fact that the team are there, though, did that act as an extra incentive for you to come back and to try and show Steve Clarke that you can still play a part?
Yeah, of course. Still a big dream to be part of that squad that goes to Germany. And that's always been in the back of my mind right throughout the rehab. I mean, as soon as my leg was broken, I knew I'd broke my leg. I was thinking, when's the next Scotland camp? I think I can make it. And that was only 3 months away. I thought if it was just one bone, I might be able to get back. But 2 bones takes a bit longer. So yeah, Scotland's always a big motivating factor for me. I'd love to get back involved, but I know I've still got an awful lot of hard work between now and not only March for the next selection, but also to try and make sure I'm in the plans for the summer as well.
I'm sure you watched the draw, though. What do you make of it?
Yeah, good draw. I mean, it was always going to be difficult. There's not going to be an easy game when you get to tournament football. So yeah, I think we have a chance if we play the way we can play. That team just doesn't fear anybody. There's so many guys in there with quality that can score against anyone. So we're in a good place. A really good team, and the togetherness that they've shown throughout will put us in a really good place going into the tournament, and hopeful that we can get through the group.
I know Steve Clarke's tried to build like a club mentality. When you were injured last December, did you get messages of support from your teammates, like from within even your other goalkeepers within that?
Yeah, from so many people, literally hundreds. Which is great at the time. That support and that sort of level of camaraderie between fellow players and coaches and things like that.
How far wide did they come? All around the world? Or?
Yeah, just ex-teammates, even from players in the league that I perhaps hadn't even spoken to before, and it was nice to receive them. Right, it gives you that motivation to start with, to kickstart the comeback, and as it goes along, that kind of dries up towards the end, and the initial reaction, and it's to make sure you're not soon forgotten about. You need to come back and show all these well-wishers that you're not finished yet, and that's what I intend to do.
Was that key to make sure that people didn't forget about you? Because there have been players injured and maybe just drifted away, but you've always been here. Whenever the first team game's on here at Tynecastle, I can see you walking around the pitch before the game, trying to make sure that you want to be part of this.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think all the injured players have done that here. But yeah, Hearts means so much to me. I want them to be successful, whether I'm in the team or not. I've loved every minute being here and coming back for the second time to try and help us be successful, and I want to continue that. We've got ourselves in a decent position at the start of this season, and it's up to all of us now to kick on and make sure that we put the hard work in between now and not only January, but between then and the end of the season, to make sure we're back in Europe again and trying to finish third.
In terms of your own future, have you thought about a future after you stop playing?
No, I still want to keep playing. Out of contract in the summer, so looking to try and do enough to make sure that I'm still playing football at the very highest level. And the first chance that I get to go back out there and play, it's up to me to then go and prove that I'm worth that.
How important is it that that you show Hearts that you can still do it though, and show the fans, because the fans have been fantastic as well in their backing for you?
Yeah, that's what I would love to do. That's been the the focus from the very start was to come back and ensure everybody that I could come back just as good. And not only that, to try and develop my game if possible, because the learning never stops. You're always trying to improve. It doesn't matter how old you are. So yeah, I want to come back. I want to be the best that I can possibly be.
41 at Hogmanay, there's not many players who say they still want to improve. There's improvement in them. You still feel that's the case?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still working hard, still doing all the stuff in the gym, trying to beat the other players' scores on the tests and things like that. So I'm still doing all right in all of that. So as long as I can maintain my standards of my training and keep my body in good shape, then I don't see any reason why not.
Just a quick reminder, the Behind the Goals podcast is available every Tuesday with me, Rachel Corsey, and me, Leanne Crichton. It's your one-stop shop for our take on everything that's happening in the world of football. Just head to BBC Sounds or wherever you get your podcasts and search for Behind the Goals.